Hey guys, today I'm going to be answering some of the questions about UCLA that you guys sent me. I'm not some sort of like authority on the school. Oh, by the way, I'm working on a crochet project, so I'm going to keep looking down at my lap. But yeah, I'm not an authority on the school by any means. I'll just be, sharing my thoughts based on my own experiences here at this mighty fine university. So yeah, that's this whole video. Let's get started. First, let's talk about academics. First, someone asked me, are there a lot of GEs required? And can you place out of them with AP credit? And the amount of GEs required is pretty standard, I'd say. Like, it's not incredibly overloading, but it's also not one of those schools where there are basically none. But you can place out of quite a few of them with AP credits. There are just like a couple of different like categories of GE credit, I guess, where some can only be fulfilled through classes at the university or community college classes that transfer over, and some of them you can finish with an AP credit or even like your SAT score. Additionally, you can also have overlap between GE credit and credit for your major. So like, I find that most people don't really have to like plan out their year based on the GEs. They can just, maybe pick, I think I'm taking 4 classes that only apply as GEs and nothing else. Next, let's talk about the quarter system and basically like how it is. So if you don't know, UCLA is not on a semester system. Instead, we're on this quarter thing, which is basically, wow, surprise, surprise, you can divide the year into 4 sections, and each quarter is named after the 4 seasons. You enroll in new classes every quarter, and basically every quarter is a 10-week compacted version of a semester-long class, except you don't take as many classes per quarter as you would in a semester system. It's usually 3 to 4 for most people. This can have its pros and cons. Personally, I kind of like it. I don't know, I have like low-key a really short attention span when it comes to academic subjects. And in a semester system, by like week 10, I'd kind of be like burnt out and not really care at all about the class. But in the quarter system, you're at week 10, you're basically done, you just take finals and then it's over. But it can be kind of stressful to just like have to get through that sheer amount of information in such a short time. Like, there really are no rest breaks. You can't really afford to like slack off at any point in the quarter. And it's like slightly more stressful, depending on your perspective, to go through 3 rounds of finals and midterms each year instead of 2, or maybe even more if you take summer quarter classes, but that's another story. And for comparison, we still like take the same amount of school year as a semester system school. Semesters are 15 weeks long and you have 2 of them, so it's still 30 weeks, but it's just like divided up differently. Next, someone asks if there is competition over grades, and I think this like varies more by major. Like, I hear it's a little more competitive in the STEM fields in the engineering school, but it's not like we're like actively fighting other students over grades. Like, no one really sees it like that. Not many classes at the school are based on a curve where like there are only a limited number of like good grades and you have to fight everyone else for them. Except for a few that are called Weeder courses, where basically each major has like a super, super hard course that, isn't necessarily like graded on a curve, but they just make it unnecessarily difficult to try to like weed people out of majors that are in high demand. I don't really like that as a concept, but that's pretty much the only case in which I can see there being like competition over grades. But in general, I feel like the students here are pretty friendly and collaborative. It's more like us against the knowledge or us against the test versus like students against each other. If this has been out of focus for the past like bit, I'm really sorry. I just got a new camera and I'm not really good at knowing how to operate it, and also like I'm kind of just slapping this video together, which is why it's going on my second channel, because it's kind of a mess. But yeah, let's get into the next question. I put in my notes, a lot of people asked me about like, do they have such and such major here, or what majors are available? And I hope this doesn't come off as like mean or passive aggressive, but just Google it. I physically do not have time to answer all of those questions or like read out a list of majors, because y'all have better things to do than to listen to like text to speech, but it's just me talking and mispronouncing words. One thing I guess to note is that UCLA doesn't have undergraduate business degrees, so if you want to be a bourgeoisie studies major, maybe this isn't the right place to go. Although you can have like minors in the business school, or where most of the business and finance bros go here at UCLA is the business economics major. A related question was, what majors is UCLA known for? And I'd say probably the most famous or like esteemed, notable major is the film school. Like, we're in LA, right next to all the major Hollywood studios, and the UCLA Film School is known to be one of the most prestigious in the whole country. I think nursing is also pretty, like, competitive and good here, although it's kind of, like, not talked about as much because there just aren't as many, like, nursing students as compared to, like, the ratio of people in the general college, which is called the College of Letters and Sciences. That's where they have most of the, like, BA, BS majors that are not, like, professional degrees. The engineering school is also known to be pretty good, and pretty much every academic department within the College of Letters and Sciences is known to be, like, really good. That's why we're, like, a top research institution and considered a very prestigious university. So if the school has your major, it's probably a pretty good academic department, I think. I mean, you know, maybe there are exceptions, but generally, like, UCLA faculty are super highly esteemed. We've got a couple more questions about majors, so bear with me here. Somebody asked whether it is easy to change your major, and that really depends on how you want to change your major. So as I kind of mentioned earlier, there are a couple different sub-schools known as colleges within the overarching UCLA University. So if you want to change within the College of Letters and Sciences, which is most majors, it's pretty easy. You just need to, like, is this out of focus again? God damn. Okay. Well, anyways, within the College of Letters and Sciences, it's pretty easy to change your major. You just need to finish the pre-major requirements for that major, which you can just find by Googling, like, UCLA insert major here, and their registrar page will tell you what you need to do to get into the major. And once you finish those requirements, it's pretty smooth sailing to just switch your major. Switching into the College of Letters and Sciences or within it is not that hard, but switching into another college is a lot harder. For engineering, it's a similar, like, finish the prereqs with a certain GPA and you'll be in, but the GPA requirement is a lot harder to obtain and the classes are also pretty freaking difficult. For the arts schools and the film schools, you basically need to apply as if you were like a freshman applicant by submitting your portfolio and writing the essays and also adding in, like, taking a bunch of classes within their department. So it's a little harder. It's not impossible, but it's also, like, not as guaranteed. Last major related question is whether you can double major, double minor, etc., etc. And generally the answer is yes, as long as you have enough room in your schedule to, like, actually finish everything. You can dream it, believe it, and achieve it within 4 years, graduating on time. The UCLA Counseling and Academic Department will probably let you do it. Although, do be warned, like, if you're majoring in any of the STEM fields, those majors are super long, so it's very hard to add in a double major or, like, multiple minors. And once again, I note that you have to be able to do it within 4 years and graduate on time, because the UCLA Counseling Department is really strict about making sure everyone graduates on time. The only exception to being able to double major, I think, is within the film school. I don't think film and television allows for double majors. There might be other exceptions I don't know about, but you can just, like, Google whether double majors are allowed for the majors that interest you. Next, let's talk about professors. How are the professors? They're very smart. They're, like, leading scholars in their field, because, once again, UCLA is a leading research institution, very prestigious in, like, every academic subject. So far, I've had about half, like, research professors who, like, do research as their main job and then teaching as, like, the side gig. But I've also had about half of my instructors be these people called lecturers or, like, instructors who are not specializing in research, but instead, like, hold an advanced degree, but mostly do their work as a teacher. Research professors at pretty much every elite research institution are more known to be interested in their research and not so much in undergraduate education, which, like, fair enough, I guess you have your priorities straight. So they're a great resource to just, like, learn a lot about the subject because they know so much about what they're teaching. But at the same time, you know, they just don't place as much energy into lecturing or helping people, which doesn't mean that they're bad teachers or that they're disorganized or that they're not nice or that you can't talk to them or go to office hours and ask for help. Like, I've not had, like, a straight up bad professor in any of my classes so far. Part of why I've mostly had good professors, though, is because you can, like, optimize your schedule to have better professors. You can just look up their reviews on this UCLA specific version of Rate My Professors that is called Bruin Walk, and it's super helpful because, you know, you want to hear people's opinions and ratings about whether they're a good professor, and you can also look at the grade distributions from the registrar of past versions of their class, so you can know, like, oh, this is a class where, like, most people fail, so maybe I shouldn't take that class. Yeah, stuff like that. Someone submitted just, like, single statement. Academic rigor. And I understand you want to ask, like, what is the academic rigor like? So no worries. I'm smart enough to fill in the blanks for you. I'll answer that. So the academic rigor is about